Across the many stories set in the Alien universe, there's evidence to suggest that the xenomorphs are part of some kind of hive mind that, at some level, operates as a collective consciousness.
Get away from her, you bitch!
The same cannot be said for IGN. This website is the work of a large group of individuals with varied, and sometimes directly conflicting, perspectives on pretty much every single game. But a review, by its very nature, can only reflect the perspective of one person. A decade ago, our own Ryan McCaffrey gave Alien Isolation a 5.9 in his review, noting that, among other things, its genuine scares were diluted by repetition and padding. He wasn't alone in that reaction, and other major review outlets gave it similar scores for similar reasons.
Alien Isolation provides us a glimpse at the ultimate Alien game. It's too bad that brief glimpse is surrounded by so many hours of uneventful film.
Today, on its 10th anniversary, I'm here to respectfully dissent and offer a different perspective. I love Alien Isolation. It is one of my favourite games of all time. And, even after all these years, it remains a singular, terrifying triumph. When Alien Isolation arrived in 2014, I was working at a different website. As the year drew to a close, I wrote that I believed Creative Assembly's take on survival horror was the best game of the year. I reread that piece after recently replaying the whole campaign, and found that everything I loved about it at launch remains what I love about it today. The headliner of the whole event is, of course, the Xenomorph itself, a landmark piece of enemy AI engineering. Creative Assembly somehow managed to turn lines of code into a creature that appears genuinely, terrifyingly alive. Despite operating almost entirely without a scripted sequence of actions, every encounter with it feels as though it were perfectly authored to generate maximum tension. The way it learns from your actions, such as investigating lockers after discovering you use them to hide, is truly unnerving. On the hard difficulty level, when the AI is firing on all cylinders, the Xenomorph truly is the ultimate foe depicted in the movies, and so I can understand why this tougher challenge is listed as the recommended way to experience the game. But while this mode is more accurate to the experience of Ellen Ripley, it is perhaps not the best way to experience Alien Isolation for the very first time. Without prior understanding of the systems, many of which are bespoke or subversive, a playthrough on the medium difficulty level is the better starting place. Ryan sadly fell afoul of this for his review, where he understandably opted for hard based on that menu prompt. Better phrasing would have helped here. I describe the hard mode as the faithful Alien experience rather than the recommended one. There's still plenty of scares to be had on the lower settings. I'd assumed, after 10 years and plenty of documentation of how it all works, that fear effect would have dissipated, just as more recent Alien movies have lost the element of surprise because we know so much about the xenomorph life cycle. I was wrong. Despite a small contingency of well-executed pretenders in the likes of Amnesia the Bunker's Monster and the Resident Evil 2 remake's Mr. X, there's still nothing that truly compares to Alien Isolation's authentic feeling intelligence. The gameplay implications of that intelligence were one of the things Ryan criticised in his review, noting that it forced a restrictive structure of hiding and waiting for the xenomorph to move on every time it interrupted your journey. I can understand where he was coming from, since a long history of games have conditioned many people to play that way, but from my point of view, I see the Alien sharp hunting ability as the catalyst for one of the most interesting stealth games of the era because of how boldly it defies conventions. Up until that point, the stealth genre was built on observation and pattern recognition, understanding how an enemy's regular patrol path can be interrupted and exploited. The xenomorph, however, has no regular path to exploit, making it unpredictable. Your approach has to be much more reactive and, as a result, more authentic to the reality of the situation. This can, depending on your stomach, force you into hiding in lockers and beneath desks. The more interesting approach, though, is to make extensive use of Isolation's tools. The throwable noisemakers and flares act as distractions, pulling the alien away to open up new routes. Emergency override buttons lock down doors, putting a hard barrier between you and it. Smoke bombs and rewired air purification systems hide you from view at the cost of your own vision. Through smart and admittedly risky use of these tools, you can sort of wrangle your hunter. While the xenomorph plays by its own rules as it stalks you, Alien Isolation does make use of observation and pattern recognition in a different way. It is one of the best examples of purposeful sound design in the history of games, with unique audio markers for everything the xenomorph does. Dull thuds from above note the alien's presence in the air ducts, revealing that it's close but not yet a direct threat. The clatter of metal and a rattlesnake-like hiss signals that it has emerged from a vent and is now in the environment with you. The heavy thud of its striding footsteps are perfectly calibrated to indicate which direction it approaches from. While the increasingly panicked tones of your motion tracker emphasize its proximity. And eventually, a scuttle and scrape on steel signals that your foe has finally retreated back into the air ducts. All this hide-and-seek stealth gameplay is supported by exceptional level design. Every zone of the vast, sprawling Sevastopol station is built around sightlines, with plenty of windows and looping corridors to allow for clear, and occasionally purposefully unclear, vision of your environment and the alien. The air ducts that snake through these levels offer life-saving hidden paths that bypass the alien, although they purposely never lead you quite where you want to go, ensuring emerging from them is always a tense experience.
I don't have time for this.
The design of each area frequently loops and folds in on itself, cementing the sense that Sevastopol is a coherent, functional whole rather than a video game level. Within each mission, the use of backtracking grants you familiarity and, eventually, mastery over an area, akin to the design of Resident Evil 2 and Silent Hill 2. There's also backtracking built into the overall campaign design, which evokes Dark Souls' interconnectedness. Within that environment, Creative Assembly took a Metroidvania-inspired approach to using new tools on old locked doors, so the station expands in new ways with every deck revisited.
Biocontainment hazard level Omega Season. Tomorrow. What are we?
All of those decks and corridors, of course, still look absolutely gorgeous even 10 years later. The meticulous recreation of the 1979 film's retrofuturism is well documented, but in 2024 it's the lighting that really impresses. The darkness is primarily illuminated by indirect sources, lending the entire playspace a distinct visual identity. The glow of computer monitors, projectors, and emergency bulbs softly illuminate each room, gently highlighting trails of volumetric smoke and leaving darkness in every corner. And while Creative Assembly's bespoke engine is able to render dynamic lighting, much of the final effect is created through careful use of baked-in shadows. It's proof that artistic intention can trump technical brawn. There's no ray tracing here, but it really doesn't matter that every light isn't dynamic when everything is so fine-tuned by hand. The Xenomorph and the Sevastopol are impressively designed then, but together they produce some of the most stressful gameplay in modern-ish memory. Creative Assembly shows a strong understanding of what our limits are though, and so the campaign undulates between stretches of alien encounters and other gameplay styles. The most stressful sections are often followed by quieter, safer periods of exploration and puzzle solving. There are also variations on the stealth systems. Sequences with the creepy Working Joe androids or human security staff use more traditional stealth gameplay, with the option to avoid enemies or engage with lethal force. But, akin to sections with the alien, these stealth encounters have an interesting twist thanks to their intersection with survival horror mechanics. Limited ammunition for your very loud weapons means engaging is a risky endeavour in multiple ways, while the incredibly powerful bolt gun must go through a lengthy charge-up process before releasing the trigger, adding tension to every headshot. Stealth has always been a game of risk and reward, but Isolation's trickiest encounters force you to really think on the implications of every action. These varying gameplay challenges contribute to a strong sense of pace. You can practically feel the campaign breathing in and out, although you can never quite predict how deep or shallow each of those breaths will be. My favourite aspect of Alien Isolation's pacing, though, is its use of the flamethrower. Picked up roughly halfway through its near 20-hour campaign, its searing emissions are the only thing that can force the indestructible Xenomorph to flee. In the final third, when you discover that there are multiple aliens infesting the station and their behaviour becomes increasingly aggressive, the flamethrower becomes vital to your survival. Armed with its power, you become more confident. You're given the strength to walk the corridors upright rather than constantly crouched. Inevitably, you shout, "Get away from me, you bitch," at the TV as you hold down the trigger. Through the flamethrower, Creative Assembly brilliantly recreates the final girl trope. After a dozen hours of desperate survival and learning your enemy's mode of operation, it's time to finally stand up for yourself. The time it takes to reach that point is a common criticism. Ryan's review, as well as many others that were much more positive overall, posit that Alien Isolation is simply much too long. It's an idea I reject. That aforementioned pacing means the campaign doesn't outstay its welcome, at least in terms of gameplay design. It's a clear demonstration of how we all have different responses, even to things we collectively agree on. And, as my own thoughts on length and pacing shows, even some of the most glowing assessments don't always correlate with your own positive experiences. What I will concede though is that the final third is flawed in terms of narrative and objective design. As Ryan correctly identified, it suffers from Return of the King syndrome, with the final stretch featuring a number of false finales that try your patience. There's also a reliance on backtracking under pressure, which instead of feeling organic, seems included purely to induce panic and frustration. But rather than cut the campaign short, I'd rather Creative Assembly had shuffled its last act objectives to make them feel more meaningful. Like any good Alien story, after leaving Sevastopol, you discover that one final Xenomorph has infiltrated your escape vessel. But instead of acting as a killer final sequence, this story beat is an underbaked obligation. There's no exploration of the ship. No clever solution to the problem, just a quick-time event button press and a disappointing cut to black. I wish the extended retreat from Sevastopol Station had been condensed in order to allow more time on the escape ship, enabling a much more significant and satisfying you thought it was over twist. And subsequent alien extermination. Even so, I maintain that the vast majority of Alien Isolation is nothing short of brilliant. And while GameSpot, Polygon and the Toronto Sun all put out reviews along the same line as Ryan's, Alien
World War Z's competent but basic co-op shooter gameplay provides a good venue for a group of 4 friends to get together, topple massive zombie herds, maybe save a few survivors here and there, and laugh about it when the results roll in. There's nothing revolutionary or even that remarkable about World War Z, but the formula it so rigidly follows has proven to be fun. Comparisons between World War Z and the Left 4 Dead series are more than justified. Unavoidable even. The 11 linear gauntlet missions in World War Z involve completing a series of simple tasks that effectively promote teamwork and communication, especially during jam-packed zombie attacks. Weapons, ammunition, and healing.
Hollywood animal. Is it worth a buy? Let's read the words of the movies. Of the developer. Make movies even if someone has to die. Sorry, can't say that. Even if someone has to be unalived. Take the helm of a major Hollywood studio at the dawn of sound cinema and guide it through decades of creative achievements and glamour, debauchery and dark deeds, through choices and unpleasant compromises. Yes, guys, this is a movie tycoon game. You run your own studio. Mine's XXX Vision Studios, and it's been relatively successful until the mayor completely screwed me over. Because the mayor said to me, he says, Mac, my lovely daughter here fancies herself as an actress. Can you fit her into the movies? I said, go F yourself, mate. She can join the queue like everybody else. And I thought that was the right thing to do because I'm a noob. I didn't realise how cutthroat this industry was, and so the mayor then persuaded every major construction company to boycott my studios, which meant the only people that would build any more buildings for me were the bloody O'Reillys, and they were falling apart straight away, and my whole movie studio's gone bust. So it's that kind of game, guys. There's a lot of seediness. A lot of seediness. I mean, we know Hollywood's full of seediness and sacrifices and all. Yeah, it is. It's a pit. Sodom and Gomorrah. That's Hollywood. Hollywood. Don't start. Hollywood. Yeah, do start. These fuckers. They think that they're so important. Robert the fucking Niro thinks he somehow is an expert on everything. What a fucking fanny he is. These people should stick to acting and shut the fuck up. I feel better now. But yeah, a lot of things go wrong with your actors. There's drugs involved, debauchery involved. But I have one of my actors by the balls because he was screwing a 15-year-old kid, and I'm just hanging that out for a rainy day because they keep coming up to you and saying, I want more money. I've been offered more money by them over there, so give us more money. And I'll just say, hey, remember that time you, and oh yes, yeah, I'll stay. They also have moods and things like that, and so it affects the movie. But how the whole game works is this. You get a little prologue, which you can't skip when you restart, which is crazy because it's kind of sets you up with default actors and stuff, which I don't really want. I'd rather just pick my own from the get-go, like. But you have to follow this little prologue every time you start, which I find incredibly annoying. But anyway, you're given a few actors, a couple of directors, you can rename them, and you have to start building you've got a lot of land, but you have to start building the buildings. You need post-production, pre-production, script writers, security, obviously engineering, you need sound sets. Everything has to be built so that you can make a movie. And every building has add-ons or kind of researches that you can do to increase manpower, technology, more comfort, new buildings, loads and loads of stuff. It's an incredibly deep game, this. And the way you make the movie is you kind of, once you've developed enough rooms, you can start making your own scripts. And this is the best part of the game, I think. You can decide on the title, what it's about, the different genres that's in the actual movie, what percentage of the movie will have them genres in. So, for example, action, adventure, romance, bang that into one movie. Yeah, you could easily do that. Maybe have it heavy on the adventure, then maybe 50-50 on the action and romance. Hire a director who's got traits in action, adventure kind of movies. Everybody has traits, actors have traits, directors have traits, so you can see what they're used to doing. And then hire your actors. You don't get the storyboarded or anything like that in the sense of, oh, this scene goes here, this scene goes there. But what you do get, you get, at the beginning of the game, you get I think it's 5 or 6 inputs that you can put into the game. Now, these will be protagonist, the villain, if there is a villain, love interest, a sidekick maybe. What is it generally about? What happens at the end? Is there gunfights in it? But you can only put, I think it's 5 you can only put at the beginning, but you can, through research, you can unlock more of that, so you can have a bit more say in what goes into the movie. Once it's finished in pre-production, after the scripting, you then send it for post-production. You have to decide where it's going to be filmed. Do you own sound stages? What props do you own? Stuff like that. If you're sending them out on location, you have to supply them with all the money that's going to be needed to have that. It costs more money, obviously, if you're sending them out. And then it's the editing, distribution. You decide, you own a load of movie houses yourself, so you fill that with, make sure your movie is the only one shown in that. Decide how long it's going to be running for, how much money you're going to spend on advertising, when you're going to launch the movie, look for holidays and stuff like that. Make sure you're not up against a potential blockbuster from a rival company, and then you release it and watch the money come in. It all gets rated along the way, then finally reviewed by critics, and it's all good. It's a good feeling when a movie you make does well. But like I say, there's a lot of underhand stuff goes on. And I've only done one playthrough. I just really started playing it today, and I wanted to get it out because the game just kind of released yesterday, and I've got a ton of videos lined up from other games that's coming up. So this is just more of a first impressions, really, how I felt about it. I love it. I think it's really, really good fun. Hiring new actors, firing old useless ones. You can hire kind of hitmen in
I
this
hope
to
you
do
didn't think
people
that
over.
transformer
It's so
would be enough to
corrupt.
power up the
So
concrete
corrupt.
slabs
I'm learning that
facility,
I'm
because
going to be
I
really more corrupt
certainly
after
did.
this, and
I was
I'll be
wrong.
on the mayor's
Laying a new
side
power
because he is
cable should
just
do
too
the job,
powerful.
though. I
So there you
hope.
go, guys.
Somebody has to be
That's the first
optimistic around
impressions
here,
of
right?
Hollywood Animal. If you ever fancied running your own movie company, I highly recommend this game. It's 15 notes. It's only 15 quid, well worth £15. It's in early access, so expect changes over the coming months, new content, etc. But so far, so good. A really good game.
team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my overview of Hollywood Animal. So for those who are across it, I do overviews on this channel. I have a look at the first 2 hours of a game. It's a Steam refund window. Steam reckons you can make your mind up about whether you want to keep a game or not in that time. I generally agree and think it's a good rule. Would say 20 hours in, you're probably not going to change your mind about how you felt 2 hours in. So it's short and punchy, broad strokes info, keep it around 10 minutes and you can make up your mind on your own. So Hollywood Animal, I've been really anticipating this for a while. I don't want to bury the lead. I've put more than 2 hours in. I've probably put about 4 hours because I've been that sucked into it and I'm really enjoying it. So suffice to say, we Appy, the developers of this, have kind of stuck the landing in my opinion, and I'm very, very hooked. This game sits in a particular niche that I would still argue has been dead for a very long time, which is movie studio management. There's been a couple of attempts over the years since, God, I think it was called The Movies back in the day. I wouldn't necessarily say that that was an excellent game, but it was the first of its kind. And I feel like a lot of people from that time, myself included, hold it in very high regard because it scratched an itch, which is to say gamifying the movie fixer back-end type running of a studio. Less about being in front of the actual camera. Anyway, this is really good. I really like it. If you sit in that similar sort of bracket where you've been looking for that itch ever since the movies and nothing's managed to quite do it, I really think Hollywood Animal nails it. And at first, I was a bit skeptical. So we Appy have done the This Is the Police games previously. 1 and 2, and Rebel Cops, which is sort of a spin-off turn-based combat version of This Is the Police. Anyway, they're all great games. I think it's a great pedigree, a great system, good storytellers. I really enjoy the art style. But this is a bit of a jump. Whether or not it's in the same time period is kind of inconsequential because it's set right when talkies started becoming a thing, 1929, on the cusp of prohibition and the real birth of the talking movies. It's very interesting and fascinating, but a different time period altogether. But it's a jump. It's a jump from what they're, let's say, more familiar with, more comfortable with, and it works incredibly well when you sort of realize that they've taken a lot of what made This to the Police special and they've transplanted it into this game, and it actually kind of helps round out what I would argue was the missing part of things like the movies games, which is to say there's a event-based narrative intrigue come choose your own adventure little mini scenario stuff littered throughout it, which is very much how This Is the Police would play out. If you don't know that game, you should check it out. I still think it holds up and it's quite excellent, where you run essentially police watch as the outgoing police chief. And so the gameplay is really interesting in timetabling and managing the police end, but the narrative storytelling breadcrumbs that are present there are kind of present here, which is to say you'll send police out to a scene and it will essentially give you little dialogue insert screens, and it's just so varied and interesting and unusual, and you have to make decisions on the fly. So much of that is in this game, on top of managing in quite anal detail all the moving parts of a movie studio. It's quite a lot to take on. A lot of balancing plates, making the numbers go up. The feedback loop is really good once you get into it. So they're sort of the broad main components. Let's strip it back a little bit. Much like the movies, you're running an entire production studio. I think you've just saved it from the brink of bankruptcy. The game tutorial handholds you through a few things at the beginning, but ultimately you are running the production cradle to grave of the inception of a movie, from script writing all the way to release in cinema. So there's long form investment. You need to keep as many things in the tube as possible and keep the plates spinning, and a big part of the antagonistic component of all the challenge, apart from balancing your pocketbook and trying to generally level up your studio, whether it's assets and infrastructure all the way through to the quality of the actors that you have on the book. And while that's all the, let's say, more economic component of it, you have events that will just randomly pop up, from humorous all the way through to incredibly dark, actually. You know, without giving too much away, one of my actresses, like a big leading lady from the previous era, maybe a bit late in her years, and she's pissing off other actresses as well, so it's got its own soapy component on the back end. But she actually suicides, and now my production's broken and stopped halfway, and you have to figure out, are you going to reshoot? Are you going to try and replace her with another actress? Do you just can the whole thing altogether and take the loss? this. Yeah, it's really fun, man. I really enjoy the intrigue. I will say, and it's still too early to really tell, but I'm not sure where they're going.
got concrete rolling out by the truckloads. And not a moment too soon. Would you believe it? It's time to finish with the construction here and move on to new, more exciting things. Just plan a route for the repair crews from the concrete slabs facility to the river lock and get yourself across. You know, maybe I was a bit too optimistic when I promised more exciting things. Still, they are new, so they can't be all that bad, right? In fact, the harbor base is so new it needs fuel to function, so you'll have to drive a tanker there. Oh, and while you're at it, take the scenic route along the coast and check out the port and the Blue Water Yacht Club's pier. If they're still there, we'll use them later to deliver stuff.
Team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my review of This Is the Police. A little bit out of season, but I'm a big fan of this game. I've covered it back in the day on the channel. This seems like as good a time as any to review it. When did it come out? 2016, so yeah, she's getting on there. And it had a sequel and also a spin-off game called Rebel Cops, but we'll talk about all of that. But the main reason that we're doing this is that the developer, Weappy, who have been, they've been like radio silent for 5 years, have just announced that they've got a new game coming, and I think it's coming next year. Hollywood Animal seems to be taking the same sort of visual stylings that you can see, the very distinct cut-out art. I don't know what else to call it, but it's distinct and it's wonderful. So from what I understand, it's a totally different game. It's not anything to do with This Is the Police, not a sequel, because This Is the Police is set in the 80s, and I think Hollywood Animal, the idea is that you are like a producer running a movie studio in the 20s, which I would love to see come out of this studio. So anyway, that's why we're here. That's why we're looking at this game. Scarlet, is it any good? Yes, it's worth your time, it's worth your money. Should probably get that out of the way. For those that missed it, that's the only real objective anything that I do, because I'm in denial that I'm not a reviewer. I don't care about writing essays or any of that sort of crap, but I do say that if I give you $5, then you give me an hour of gameplay. I don't think that's unreasonable. So This Is Police, in current day, retails at $21.50 Australian, which we'll call 4.5 hours. So I've just put my hours in, and I'm happy to report that it still holds up. It's still wonderful. You'll get your value out of that and more. Even in that time that I've spent there, the game is a bit of a slow burn. There is a narrative hook to it. There are many, many more hours left as well. So it's absolutely worth picking up. But buyer beware, even though I am quite smitten with this game and I have my biases, this is not going to be for everyone. So the game has two big moving parts to it, one being that it has an overarching narrative following Captain Boyd, or Chief Boyd I suppose you would call him. He's a soon-to-be retired police chief, and it's very complex, and it's kind of cool seeing a more adult cast of characters instead of all these bloody 20-year-old furry voice actors. Most of this cast are in their 60s, and they are brilliant, and the sparring and the back and forth, the dialogue, it's just so good hearing this. But yeah, very much in a rivalry with the mayor. The mayor's corrupt, he wants to get his mates in, he wants you gone, and you're sort of given a deadline of 6 months to get your affairs in order, behave while the mayor moves his fucking cogs in the background, and then you'll be on your way. And so that's the idea broadly, and I don't necessarily want to get into it, but the mafia get involved, and you have to walk this line between solving everyday crimes, which is the gameplay loop we'll come to, and figuring out how much of your morality you're going to try and hold to. He seems quite proud that he's one of the only police chiefs ever that people really, really like, but through a cause of narrative events that happens early, you do find yourself kind of in bed with the mafia. Again, I'm being vague. I hate that reviews say they don't spoil things, and yet they go on to tell you too much about even the narrative setup. What you need to know is that it is a really interesting story. It's grim, and I find it makes the main character relatable, because even though he's heading into that sort of retirement age, I give less fucks, there are still stakes. There are still reasons for him to want to preserve the status quo, or even want to massage his moral misgivings, right? So it pulls you in different directions as opposed to a lot of the one-dimensional writing that we get fed these days. Good guys good, bad guys bad. It's more, here's a dude trying to make the best of the situation that he can, but at the end of the day, these are the waters that you swim in, so you have to roll with those punches. The gameplay loop itself is unusual, but kind of cathartic. You run a police station in a fixed camera. Most of the camera shot you'll see is just looking at a model of the city, and that's cool because you can see the residential area. You've got sort of ghetto slums area. You've got the CBD. It's actually really kind of cool. You also, you do get like sort of weather effects and rain because of the window behind the camera. I don't know how else to describe it. It has a view of the outside weather going on as well. So they've actually come up with some clever ways to have what is essentially like a static shot of a model, but then have some more dynamic components to it, a la weather. You've got your little police cars moving around. I'm using my hands. You can see them moving around, driving to and fro, and the distance they have to travel seems to affect things. But ultimately, you're running dispatch, and you have your roster of dudes on an A-B flip shift. So you've got one day on, one day off sort of thing. And ultimately, you are just dispatching dudes to deal with crimes that get called in. There's all sorts of wild, horrendous stuff, but there's plenty of memes and funny stuff in there as well. But it could all just turn like that in a second, and before you know it, you've got officers dead in a bad decision at a shootout, or because you sent rookies or whatever. They all have like a professionalism score that goes up and down as they solve crimes or shit the bed. So you might be getting called out to like a false alarm, and you accidentally send your A team, and then you go and send some B-grade bloody numpties off, and they get, jumped in a shootout, and they all end up dead. There is a political component on top of it, and at the very base level, you petition your betters for increase in roster or more earnings and that sort of stuff. And the only way that that's going to fly is if you play ball. Now, part of that is obviously responding to crime scenes and resolving them and trying to keep civilian deaths down and all that sort of stuff.
comparatively speaking. Now for the more mundane stuff. A whole laundry list of it. First item on the list is fixing a damaged radio tower. Nothing too complex there. Just deliver a crate of spare parts from the supply depot and you're done. Next is tidying up the driveways leading to the port. The final thing is a bit more involved. We'll need to get the steel pipes facility working at full capacity. They need some replacement electric motors for their equipment, which you can deliver easily enough. Oh, and then you'll need to guide our trucks with new equipment to the same facility. Sounds straightforward enough, don't it?
Dann ist hier. Jesus ist doch gar nicht interessant und Straße.
Not sure that us borrowing these motors was arranged with the owners beforehand. Still, we're only doing this to save the entire region.
ya más.
And they'll be properly compensated down the line. I'm almost sure. So it's a win-win for everyone involved. Plus, they're not using these at the moment anyway. I wish we could somehow help the port get rid of them, just to make the place clean and all. Definitely not in any way related to any recycling bonuses whatsoever.
tal, Nicolás? ¿Cómo estás? A ver, el objetivo en este juego es explorar y resolver los problemas de las regiones. O sea, digamos que el juego se divide en regiones. Hay 8 regiones por el momento. Yo voy en la 5ª región. Me faltan todavía 3 regiones más y claro, no es tan fácil porque tienes que tener materiales, tienes que mover cosas, tienes que lidiar con un montón de cosas que a veces no salen bien. Pero claro, el objetivo es que cada mapa como tal, o cada región como tal, como quieras llamarlo, o sea, han sido afectadas por tormentas, o por huracanes, o por diluvios, o por explosiones, o lo que sea. Y tú tienes que tratar de volver a hacer o sea, la región en la que estás accesible, digamos, a la gente que vive ahí, ¿no? Y eso conlleva ayudar, digamos, a la gente con distintas tareas en estos vehículos que tú puedes comprar o vas obteniendo en distintas partes de la campaña como tal. Es un juego, como digo, que no está hecho para cualquier persona porque en realidad es bastante tedioso y hay gente que se podría aburrir muy rápido. Pero si te gusta, bueno, vas a estar como yo, que ya tengo casi 100 horas de juego. O sea, y aún me faltan, como te digo, 3 regiones todavía. Que no, o sea, que no, ni siquiera las he visto. Como no tengo tanto tiempo para jugar, lo voy jugando a poco, porque es sumamente, es súper harto. Toma mucho tiempo, mucho tiempo. O sea, una región, como para que te hagas una idea, la región más difícil son como 45 horas, ¿ya? Esa es la región más difícil. Y una región promedio en pasarla son 20 horas. Más o menos entre 20 y 25 horas, dependiendo de cómo juegues tú. Pero sí, ese es como lo mínimo, te diría yo. 20 horas como mínimo para pasar una región. Esta región, por ejemplo, es fácil. No es una región tan compleja o tan difícil. Entonces, probablemente yo me voy a demorar, no sé, no creo que me demore más de 15 horas tal vez. Pero claro, yo igual ya tengo, o sea, esta empresa tiene 3 juegos. Yo en el primer juego tengo casi 1000 horas. Entonces igual tengo como el conocimiento para poder afrontar ciertas cosas. Aunque a veces igual uno se equivoca, ¿no? Nadie, o sea, a ver, nada es perfecto. Puedes equivocarte, puedes tomar una mala decisión y eso va a hacer que, digamos, se alargue. Claro. Depende ya mucho como tú, o sea, a ver, el juego te da libertad. No sé si me entiendes. Como que el juego te dice, mira, esto es lo que tienes que hacer. Este es el objetivo. Tú ves lo que haces. Así es el juego. El juego no te agarra de la mano y no te dice, sabes que tienes que hacer esto. No. Tú tienes que pensar e ingeniártelas para poder hacerlo de la forma correcta, por así decirlo. Ahora, pueden haber distintas formas como lo puedes hacer, no solamente una forma, no sé si me entiendes. Como digo, hay distintos vehículos y cada vehículo puede hacer distintas cosas. Tal vez yo uso este vehículo en este caso, tal vez alguien usa otro vehículo. Ya va a depender mucho de la persona. Pero es un juego difícil. Este de acá, o sea, este juego, digamos, que se llama RoadCraft, no es tan difícil como SnowRunner, pero sí es difícil definitivamente en algunos aspectos y tedioso en otros aspectos. No sé, ¿qué es lo que más te hace perder tiempo? ¿Me entiendes? Pero aún así, para el valor del juego y la cantidad de horas que tienes por delante, yo te diría que si te gusta el género como tal, es un gran juego. Yo honestamente tengo muy pocas críticas del juego. Yo no tengo muchas críticas. No se vuelve repetitivo como el farming, el juego que te deja tu libertad, pero llega un momento en que te va. A ver, ninguna acción es igual a otra, ¿ya? Ningún mapa es igual a otro, ¿ya? Entonces, ¿podría ser repetitivo? Sí, yo creo que todos los juegos son repetitivos. O sea, no creo que no... O sea, bueno, en mi punto de vista, yo creo que todos los juegos, todos, absolutamente todos, repiten acciones dentro del juego. O sea, todos. No hay ningún juego que tú digas, esto de acá lo hice una vez y se acabó. No. Todos hay un poco de repetir. Como que de repetir las acciones como tal. Pero dentro de todo yo siento de que este juego te podría cansar. Sí, efectivamente te podría cansar. Pero va a depender, como digo, de la persona. No sé, yo por ejemplo, en mi caso en específico, no me aburro. O sea, me canso, sí, me canso. Sí me canso, hay momentos donde sí me canso, pero...
It's a nice change of pace to see a place that's not falling apart here. I guess even sinkholes know better than to open under supply depots. Or they like taller structures. Like that newly built radio tower that got swallowed by one. That's why they had to reactivate the old one, which we need to fix. But sometimes there's no fixing the old things. And it's better just to let it go. Let's hope that's not the case this time.
Ya, bueno, el tema es que, por ejemplo, a mí en lo personal, yo ya no juego MMOs, por ejemplo. Jugué mucho tiempo, por ejemplo, Tibia lo jugué casi 20 años. No sé, The First Descendant lo jugué como 3000 horas. Throne of Liberty lo jugué como 2500 horas. Lost Ark lo jugué como 2000 horas. No sé, Diablo 4 como 3500 horas. O sea, sí, o sea, llega un punto donde te puedes aburrir definitivamente. Yo no siento que, no creo que, o sea, no, yo no conozco, tengo 40 años. En mi trayectoria de videojuegos no conozco ningún juego que no sea repetitivo, la verdad. Creo que todos los juegos en algún punto te cansan, ¿ya? Ahora, hay unos que te agarran más y otros que te agarran menos. Pero también va a depender de los gustos que tú tengas. Yo no te puedo decir, ¿sabes qué? No es repetitivo. Porque sí es repetitivo. Definitivamente lo es. Pero dentro de lo que se tiene que repetir, tiene una dificultad. No es como que tú estés farmeando algo, no sé, un ejemplo, picando una piedra y después picando otra piedra y después picando otra piedra, después picando otra piedra para juntar 1000 de carbón, para luego ir a dejarlo y volver a picar 1000 piedras más, ¿me entiendes? No, así no es. O sea, es como, sí, se repiten las acciones, correcto, pero de distintas formas. Y aún así igual tienes que pensar para poder lograr el objetivo final. Entonces sí, se repite, sí, pero en formas diferentes. Ahora, igual es un juego de nicho. O sea, no es un juego que sea popular. Es como por ejemplo jugar Eurotrack. Eurotrack Simulator, Europa y América son juegos de nicho también. O sea, manejas todo el rato y tienes que entregar un paquete de un lado a otro. No, esto es como lo mismo. Acá vas arreglando zonas del mapa y se te van poniendo desafíos que tienes que tratar de lograr, ¿no? Es así. Pero claro, pero si te enamoras del juego como yo, que ya tengo años jugando, no este juego, sino los otros juegos de la saga, te termina gustando y te termina relajando. A mí en lo personal me relaja. A mí, o sea, yo que trabajo mucho, trabajo 12 horas diarias, de lunes, o sea, de martes a sábado, esto me saca un poquito de la realidad y me entretengo, ¿me entiendes? O sea, ¿qué es lo que necesito? Necesito despejar mi cerebro. Sí, es que si fuese fácil, yo creo que no, al final no te engancharía, ¿me entiendes? Si fuese muy muy fácil, al final como que te terminarías aburriendo. Yo creo que una de las cosas que, o sea, igual, bueno, van a venir más parches en el juego porque aún no está, o sea, está finalizado, pero tienen que arreglar un montón de cosas que la gente está pidiendo, que más adelante lo van a hacer un poco más difícil que ahora. O sea, más adelante, por ejemplo, va a haber daño en los vehículos. Más adelante va a haber combustible en los vehículos. Y aparte, bueno, van a agregar 2 mapas más, o sea, van a haber varias cosas más que van a agregar. Pero, o sea, yo siento de que al final uno, o sea, para que te guste un juego, tiene que ser del estilo tuyo. Si a ti te entretiene, no sé, matar marcianos, busca juegos que sean de ese estilo. A mí me gusta de todo un poco. Yo juego, por ejemplo, Souls, juego RPGs, juego juegos de acción, juego juegos de autos, juego juegos de aviones, juego juegos RTS, juego juegos de construcción, juegos simuladores, juego de todo un poco, la verdad. No tengo un gusto predeterminado. Hay temporadas que juego mucho una cosa y hay temporadas que juego otras cosas. Y así. Como que me gusta de todo un poco, mientras que sea entretenido y realmente me enganche, para mí eso es lo importante. Y obviamente, bueno, el valor del juego represente realmente lo que puede entregarte. Que si vas a pagar, por ejemplo, $50 para jugar 15 horas un juego, yo creo que no lo vale, porque no pagaste $50 y no estás recuperando el dinero que gastaste. No estás gastando más dinero por un juego demasiado corto. Para mí, bueno, yo lo veo así. Yo siempre digo, a ver, si este juego vale tanto, ¿cuánto entretenimiento me puede entregar sin tener que volver a jugarlo de nuevo? ¿Entiendes? Y si realmente cumple mis expectativas, bueno, lo compro. A ver, dependiendo del país, pero ¿en qué país estás tú? Para decirte, porque tendría que ver el país. ¿Qué país vives? Te digo inmediatamente. Dame un segundo, te digo.
Well, it's the moment of truth. I always wanted to say that. The port is all but ready to receive the massive shipments we're waiting for to fix the oil production around here. Only one minor issue remains.
Dame un segundo,
Well,
te digo.
a few minor issues. And here's where you come in. You need to fix the pipelines around the port and prepare a proper route through its territory. Nothing you haven't done before. But now it's really important. If you can't do this, we're facing an ecological disaster and rising gas prices. The company sure does care about those.
Mira, según lo que yo veo en la página de Steam como tal, en Latam, que bueno, obviamente nosotros estamos en Latam, son $22 son como $22.50. Pero, o sea, lo que quiero que entiendas es que, mira, te voy a mostrar como para que me entiendas lo que te digo. O sea, si yo, no sé si sabes, a ver, bueno, ahí se ve. Después se está viendo esto de acá. Pero déjame correr esto de acá ya. O sea, si un ejemplo, ¿no? O sea, este juego, bueno, vale, o sea, vale en la TAM $25, ¿no? O sea, entre 22, entre $23, pone $23. Yo tengo, o sea, tengo 91 horas y aún me faltan por lo menos unas 60 horas más. ¿Ya? Y ya tengo 91 horas. O sea, para acabarme el juego, por lo menos son 150 horas. ¿Ya? Solo para acabártelo. ¿Ya? Y si no tienes experiencia, probablemente sean 200 horas. ¿Ya? Ahora, para sacar todos los logros, yo creo que más de 500 horas, ¿ya? Para sacarte todos los logros. Yo te aseguro que son más de 500 horas. Pero como digo, va a depender si te gusta este tipo de juego o no te gusta. Pero el valor, o sea, yo siento que el valor como tal lo vale. Porque por 23 euros, o sea, por $23, tienes tranquilamente 120 horas. Así como si nada. Digamos que como facilito. Es mucho. Mucho. O sea, hoy, o sea, por ejemplo, te pongo un ejemplo. Spider-Man 2, o Spider-Man, o Miles Morales, ¿ya? Valen $50 cada juego y te entregan 15 horas de juego. Eso no, para mí no vale la pena. O sea, ¿por qué voy a pagar $50 por un juego que me va a dar 15 horas de juego? Yo entiendo que hay gente que le gusta, pero yo no estoy dispuesto a pagar eso, ¿verdad? Por un juego que me va a dar tan poco. No, no porque me rompo el culo trabajando, ¿no? Para poder darme algún gusto con los juegos que quiero jugar. ¿Aquí para pagar $50 y jugar 15 horas? No, gracias. Yo, no, yo lo veo así, yo lo veo de esa forma. Bueno, a menos que que alguien sea millonario y diga, bueno, sabes que yo puedo pagar esa cantidad de plata y ir a la mierda, ¿me entiendes? Y eso también es entendible al final. Ahora, yo creo que ahora. Claro, y que no, no, Spider-Man no tiene rejugabilidad ni cagando, hermano. Spider-Man no tiene ninguna puta rejugabilidad. Lamentablemente no. Y las misiones secundarias son muy malas. O sea, disculpen. Ni siquiera es que las misiones secundarias sean buenas. O sea, son pésimamente malas. Muy malas. Entonces yo no sé, no es mi estilo. O sea, me encanta Spider-Man, sí, me fascina. He visto toda la serie y todo. Me he leído los cómics y todo el tema, pero lamentablemente lo venden a un valor que yo pienso que es absurdo. Entonces, en este caso, yo siento que es un juego que sí vale la pena si te gusta el género, claro está. Porque vas a tener muchas horas de juego, muchísimas. Y aparte, una cosa que tiene esta empresa es que esta empresa, cuando saca un juego, cuando le va bien, o sea, por ejemplo en SnowRunner le fue bien, ya ha sacado temporadas. O sea, ¿qué pasa? De que sí, el juego se sigue expandiendo. El juego no sé, es del 2020 y a la fecha ha agregado como 10 mapas más. Y a este juego le fue muy bien en las ventas que tuvo. Así que probablemente vamos a ver por lo menos 5 temporadas más de este juego. O sea, de contenido nuevo, ¿me entiendes? Entonces, si contamos eso, tienes para más de 500 horas. Entonces, eso es lo que digo. Yo, como digo, yo lo veo así. Pienso de que todo depende de cuántas horas, o sea, cuánto va a costar el juego y cuánto le vas a sacar al juego. Por ejemplo, yo me compré el Oblivion Remaster y no lo he terminado porque se me crasheaba cada rato. Y yo ya tengo, o sea, sin avanzar en la campaña, ni siquiera un poco, avancé muy, muy poquito. Tengo 60 horas. Sin ni siquiera meterme mucho en la campaña. Y lo quiero terminar, pero cuando lo parchen. Por ahora está muy, muy roto el juego. Se cierra cada rato, el rendimiento es muy malo. Es un muy buen juego, pero lamentablemente está así. Así, bueno, así lo veo yo por lo menos, ¿no? Ahora, respeto todas las opiniones, realmente. Esto ya, como digo, siempre va a depender de la persona. No, yo te puedo dar mi punto de vista, yo te puedo dar mi opinión, pero al final va a depender de ti, ¿no? De si te gusta este género, si realmente lo vas a disfrutar, si realmente crees que el valor que tiene el juego para ti lo vale o no, ¿me entiendes? Hay un montón de cosas que entran en juego dentro de eso. Para mí lo vale 100%. Yo ya, o sea, me costó $23 y ya tengo 91 horas. Tengo 91 horas, o sea, ya pagué el juego. O sea, lo pagué jugando, digamos, ¿no? Ya me pasé del valor que tenía. Hace mucho rato. Ahora, bueno, hay ciertas cosas como por ejemplo esto que voy a hacer ahora, que realmente a mí, o sea, la única cosa que no me gusta de este juego, que es la única cosa que yo siento que a mí, a mí en lo personal no me gusta, es los materiales. O sea, Porque lamentablemente no hay ningún... O sea, hay un camión que sirve para poder cargar materiales. A principio de año compré The Witcher 3 y jugué unas 20 horas y no hice nada. Mira, yo te puedo decir una cosa. Yo The Witcher 3 lo compré cuando salió, ¿ya? O sea, yo soy un amante de ese tipo de juegos. Bueno, estás igual que yo juego solamente 20 horas a la semana y a veces juego menos, a veces juego 12 o 15, lo que pueda, ¿me entiendes? Porque tengo que trabajar y trabajo mucho. Pero aún así intento darme algo de tiempo para poder distraerme porque lo que más amo, digamos, aparte de mi esposa, es jugar. Entonces, por ejemplo, The Witcher 3 es un juego que realmente tiene muchas horas. Yo, bueno, en esta cuenta no lo tengo, pero en la otra cuenta debo tener unas 300 horas de juego de The Witcher. Unas 300 horas de juego. Que es una locura, porque me pasé el juego por completo. Me saqué todos los logros, pasé todos los DLCs, pasé toda la historia, pasé absolutamente todo. Y estoy esperando el que va a salir ahora. O sea, no va a salir pronto, pero va a salir, bueno, dentro de tiempo. Yo ese juego lo amé con toda mi alma, honestamente. Realmente lo amé, porque es increíblemente bueno. Muy, muy bueno. Pero claro, igual te entiendo. O sea, a veces, a mí me pasa, a veces me pasa de que, claro, compro un juego, lo abro, ¿no? Empiezo a jugar y no tengo ganas de jugar el juego. Entonces, ¿qué hago? Lo dejo ahí, ¿no? Hasta que algún día me siente, tenga ganas de jugarlo. Yo creo que a muchos de nosotros nos pasa eso realmente. No siempre vas a tener las mismas ganas. Es un juego que compré por menos de 20 dólares. Mira, ahora está en oferta y debe estar unos... O sea, los DLCs deben estar como... No sé, está baratísimo realmente. O sea, tendría que ver a cuánto está, pero realmente ahora está muy barato. Esto, a ver. Ahora debe estar... ahora debe estar muy, muy barato. O sea. A ver si lo veo. Yo en esta cuenta no lo tengo, pero lo tengo en la otra, entonces no lo voy a no lo compraría. Porque yo ya me lo di cuenta, o sea, si lo tengo en esta cuenta de acá, que es otra cuenta mía. Y imagínate, o sea, el juego base, los dos DLCs, ¿no? Que cada DLC dura como 25 horas o 30 o tal vez más. ¿Ya? Están a 8 dólares. Está pero regalado, hermano. Porque o sea, solamente, o sea, en estos tres, o sea, en el juego base y los dos DLCs tienes por lo menos 100 horas de juego. Yo, por ejemplo, en Oblivion tengo 66, en Hogwarts tengo 73. Bueno, ahora está regalado. Está completamente regalado. Y aparte hay una cantidad de mods olvídate, que te vuelves loco. O sea, puedes modear el juego al 100%. Este, por ejemplo, el Baldur's Gate 3 también lo tengo, pero lo tengo en otra cuenta también. Lo tengo en esta cuenta de acá. Y también me lo di vuelta, es un puto juegazo. Puto juegazo. Elden Ring también lo tengo y es un puto juegazo. Ahora ese no me lo da vuelta. Bueno, este también es un puto juegazo. Pero esto es lo que digo. Este juego, por ejemplo, no vale la pena. O sea, para mí, por el valor que tiene. No sé. O sea, ahora justo están las ofertas. Yo estaba viendo qué comprar y ya. Pero yo ya he jugado casi. O sea, digamos que yo ya me conozco. Sé lo que me gusta y lo que no. O sea, al final no compro cosas que no voy a jugar. Por ejemplo, Kingdom Come Devilry, es muy bueno también. Y el 2 también es muy bueno. Lo tengo los dos, o sea. No en esta cuenta, en esta cuenta tengo el 2. Pero sí, son muy buenos. No sé, hay un montón de juegos que puedes jugar, pero bueno. Ya depende de cada persona. La verdad. Pero te entiendo, te entiendo. Yo tampoco tengo mucho tiempo, así que te entiendo perfectamente lo que te pasa. La vida es muy dura. Definitivamente la vida es dura. Entonces, hay que trabajar demasiado. Pero sí, si tú me preguntas a mí... Suerte, hermano. Suerte, Nicolás. Gracias por estar acá, viejo. Esto es lo que menos me gusta. Esto es lo que yo detesto. La parte que menos me gusta. Esta es la parte que menos me gusta. Que es conseguir los materiales. ¿Dónde la dejé? Ahora, si traigo, claro, podría cargar el otro camión. Posiblemente sea una muy buena idea eso. Yo creo que esto es lo que más se pierde tiempo. En todo lo que puedes perder tiempo, bueno, esto es lo que más se pierde tiempo. Ah, verdad que esa puerta yo no la había visto. ¿Tienen alguna duda? Me preguntan. Voy a estar con el micrófono apagado por ahora.
expecting more jobs for you once help arrived. After all, someone has to help the helpers. Otherwise, how are they gonna help anyone? But this has gotten way out of hand. My entire desk is covered with printouts. It'll take me a while to sift through it all. But I found some requests you can take care of in the meantime. I guess I'll just send them over to you in a batch. You're a self-starter, right? It's a nice change of pace to see a place that's not falling apart here. I guess even sinkholes know better than to open under supply depots. Or they like taller structures. Like that newly built radio tower that got swallowed by one. That's why they had to reactivate the old one, which we need to fix. But sometimes there's no fixing the old things. And it's better just to let it go. Let's hope that's not the case this time.
ahora estamos acá y yo.
guys aren't big on wasting time. That dig is large enough to hide a pyramid. No wonder they needed that truck. Something tells me we're going to be hearing more from them. That could keep things interesting. Not many folk like cleaning up their own mess, like these oil spills, and even fewer like cleaning up someone else's mess. So you have the right to grumble. But there's something to keep in mind. You're not cleaning up after someone. You're helping Mother Nature. I keep telling this to myself every night, and sometimes I even fall asleep. The magic of self-suggestion.
paving.
It always gets me when someone builds critical infrastructure and only has one power cable for it. It's like, golly, we certainly can't splurge on a backup power cable that will cost us a few $100, can we? And then they eat millions in losses. Classic. Gosh, just take this site in. Now that's inspiring. Of course, the damage will take time to heal, but it's not going to get any worse now, and all the local critters have you to thank for saving them. Thanks from me too. I'm not a critter, but still.
grandes, tío.
O sea, voy a tener que, eso ya no lo voy a hacer hoy día porque la verdad que igual estoy agotado, o sea, hoy día realmente he descansado poco, estoy muy cansado, pero tengo que hacer, o sea, voy a tener que probablemente limpiar toda esta vía. para que y poner arena probablemente, porque hay fango, pero es muy poco lo que hay. Pero aún así, esos camiones no van a pasar. O sea que voy a tener que probablemente limpiarlo. Ahora, este mapa es el más corto. No, no es el más corto, pero es uno de los más cortos que hay. No es tan largo como otros mapas. El primer mapa es el más corto, yo creo, probablemente. Pero si yo no estoy seguro, si que yo creo que este fin de semana lo termino. Mañana es lunes, ¿no? Yo descanso domingo. Posiblemente mañana pues lo pueda terminar. Posiblemente. No estoy 100% seguro. Tal vez. Todo depende de qué tanto tenga que hacer. Pero, o sea, hasta el momento no ha sido tan difícil como pensé que sería. Ahora igual, eso no quiere decir de que no voy a tener que limpiar el camino, voy a tener que limpiarlo y poner arena también. Es una parte bastante larga para poder llevar, digamos, a los camiones al otro lado. Ahora eso yo obviamente como dije ya no lo voy a hacer, pero en media hora yo creo que lo hago. No creo que me demore más de media hora en hacer eso. Como les dije, realmente me siento muy cansado. Estoy reventado de tanto trabajo. Ya, bueno, yo bueno, el día de hoy lo dejo hasta acá, la verdad. Ya mañana continúo. Y eso, ya los veo mañana. Estoy demasiado cansado, la verdad. Los veo.